On this episode of Slainte, we head to Spindrift Brewing in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. We'll learn all about their brewing process, how the name and logo came to be, and about their 7th Wave program, which is helping get the community involved with brewing. Today we're headed over to Spindrift Brewing over in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. We're going to be meeting with the head brewmaster, Kyle. He's going to show us how they run things. We're also going to be talking to the assistant brewmaster, Stephen. I'm pretty excited to talk to him because apparently they've been doing something called the 7th Wave program. He's going to tell us all about that and what it is they're doing to help local brewmasters. Located in Burnside, Spindrift Brewing is more than just a brewery. Inside is a beautiful tasting room where you can enjoy their many products. But before we jump into the beer, I wanted to get the history of how all this came to be. First up, we talked to Rob, one of the co-founders of Spindrift Brewing. So Rob, tell me how you got started with Spindrift.
Well, Spindrift started out as an idea in February of 2012 with my involvement when Andy Armstrong and Andrew Bell, who were business partners in Atlantic Spirits and Wines, gave me a call while I was still in the Navy, and were asking about when I was going to retire, when I was going to move, because the Navy was going to move me to Edmonton, and I really didn't want to move to Edmonton. So he said, I got a plan for you. I said, oh, what's that? He said, we're going to open a brewery. I went, what? He said, we're going to open a brewery. I went, I don't know anything about opening a brewery. He said, well, you'll learn. And Andrew always had a passion for wanting to start a brewery. His first business as an entrepreneur was the imported beer company in Newfoundland, which brought like Kilkenny and all these other beers to Newfoundland back in, I don't know, like 1990.
Who thought up the name? Where did that come from?
Spindrift was actually mine. My wife is into marketing, and we were banging our heads against the wall trying to come up with a name. And we went through everything from Dark Side Brewery, like, no, I can't do that. That's been done. Dartmouth Brewing, no, we don't want to do it. And then, Lake Bannock, no, we couldn't do that. So one night I was at home, going to bed, and my wife's pestering me, come up with a name, something nautical. I was like, I got nothing, so I'm tired. She said, well, think of stuff. So I just started rambling words out of my mouth, nautical words or naval words, and I came out with Spindrift. She bolts out of bed, turns on the light, and said, say that word again. I said, Spindrift. She goes, that's a wicked word, what does it mean? I said, well, when you get waves in the ocean and you get whitecaps, the spray that comes off a whitecap is a Spindrift. She goes, that's a wicked name. So I called Andrew that night, it's probably 11:30 my time. I said, I got the name.
I like it.
So some of the best ideas come up when you're not even trying.
The buoys, where did the buoys come from?
The logo, we started out trying to figure out, okay, we got a name, what are we gonna do for a logo? And the first thing we thought about was a wave. And then after a while, we did some artwork and we went, well, how do you own a wave? Like, it's not an image you can own. And Andrew was at his cottage in Newfoundland, and on his wall was an oil painting by a Nova Scotia artist, and it showed a cliff with like a shed on it, and outside were these 4 piled lobster floats. And I remember he called me, it was like a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, and he goes, I got the logo, check your phone. And there was a photo of the 4 lobster boys. If you notice, and this wasn't planned, I'd love to say we were clever enough that we planned the colors, but if you look in the colors of the boys, there's 4 boys, there happen to be 4 Atlantic provinces, and there's a blue and white boy, which happens to be the colors of Nova Scotia. There's a red and a green boy with white, when if you added yellow, those would be the colors of PEI. There's a red and yellow boy with some black beside it, colors of New Brunswick, and the pink, white, and green is a traditional thing in Newfoundland way back before in Confederation. They called it Republic of Newfoundland, and the pink, white, and green was always sort of seen as the Newfoundland flag. So more by accident than by design. I'd like to say we were really clever and set it up that way, but it came out, and sometimes you never know what's going to shake out of it.
What type of experience are you hoping people to have when they come into Spindrift?
We want them to come in and say, look, it's a nice space, there's nice light, and we know that behind those walls there's big tanks where people are making that beer by hand every day. We're using premium ingredients, we're doing small batches, and we're taking care of what it is we make. and making sure we get them the best product we can.
To learn more about the beer behind the logo, we now meet up with Spindrift's head brewer, Kyle, to find out about what goes into their brewing process. So Kyle, tell me how you got started with brewing.
I started at Garrison Brewing Company back in 2012, just as a laborer while I was in school. And I was able to, I guess, pair my schooling with what I was doing at Garrison at the time. And it quickly became a career path for me that I wanted to continue to pursue.
And did you have any idea that when you got involved, that this would be your career path?
Not initially, but I was quickly able to tailor my education to that career path. So I think after second year, I kind of knew that it was something I wanted to pursue.
What would you say makes this place right for you?
I'm a big fan of all of our core brands. We have quite a few lagers in our portfolio, which is very unique for the Nova Scotia craft brewing industry. So I love brewing lagers. I like making drinkable beers, and we have a great team here.
Can you go through your process, kind of like a typical day for you?
Well, essentially I lead production, so I make schedule, I make sure all of our ingredients and our books are in line, and our record keeping. I do the bulk of the brewing and filtration. You'll meet Steve Crane, who's our assistant brewer back there. He does the other half of that. What makes a head brewer is just more of an administrative side of things and taking the lead on what people are doing in the back of the house.
Do you get to decide what types of beer you brew?
Basically, we can, as a company, we would come to a decision on what our next brand might be. So for example, we wanted to do an IPA, which is our new Hurricane IPA. Within that style guideline, I am able to formulate a recipe and carry that out. So,
where do you see, from your opinion, the craft industry going here in Nova Scotia?
I think a lot of the trends in North America kind of reach Nova Scotia last. So there are a lot of things happening out there that we still haven't quite latched onto, that we will. So there's a lot coming for the consumer that they should be excited about. But one other thing that's really nice about Nova Scotia is we appreciate classic styles in a way that Americans might not. They're a little bit more experimental. We still like to drink English ales and all that stuff. So there's a lot coming for the consumer, and a lot more breweries are opening, and everyone is going to bring a creative angle to it. So
sounds exciting.
Yep, it is.
Next up on Slainte, we get the full brewery tour with Kyle. Then we talk to co-founder Andy about his journey to Spindrift Brewing. After an in-depth conversation with Kyle about his journey to Spindrift, he now offered to show me the full brewing experience with a tour of the brewery.
So this is Spindrift Brewing Company. This is our production area where we bring grain to the can or the glass. So we're in the mill room right now, and this is where we store all of our bagged grain, and we bring in our grain from the silo, which is our base malt. It's a Pilsner malt. We grind it into, I guess, a size where we can utilize it in the brew house. So right now we're in the brew house. We have a 3-vessel, 20-barrel system from DME, which is based out of PEI. Over here in the mash tun, we bring in the grain through our auger, and this is where we mix grain and water for certain time, temperature rests, and that basically extracts the sugar from the malt, from which we eventually pitch with yeast and then make alcohol. So in the mash tun is where the grain is, and we move all of that grain over to the lauter tun. And this is where we clarify the wort, which is the liquid sugar in there. We recirculate it through the grain bed, that clarifies it, and then we take that clarified liquid off of the grain and move it into the brew kettle. And this is where we boil and add hops, and the hops are for bitterness, aroma, and flavor. We boil for an hour to an hour and a half, depending on the brew. And then once that's over, we transfer it out through a heat exchanger and into our fermentation vessels. So this half of the brewery is where we cellar and package all of our beer. So these tanks behind us are cylinder conical vessels. They are also called fermenters. This is where we pitch yeast onto the wort that we just got from the kettle. at a certain temperature, and that's where fermentation takes place, and conditioning. So that's where the beer cleans up and becomes drinkable. So finally, the last part of the process is packaging the beer. And we have a cask canning line right over here, and it does around 30 cans a minute, and we can all of our brands through that line.
And you guys do kegs here as well?
We do fill kegs as well, so 50 liters and 20-liter kegs.
Getting a full look at the brewery had been an eye-opening experience to the entire process here at Spindrift. Now we get a chance to talk to another co-founder of the brewery, Andy. Andy, tell me where you grew up and how you got involved in brewing.
Well, I'm an Upper Canadian. I grew up in a mining community in Sudbury, Ontario. And when I graduated, I got lucky and got a job with the Seagram company. So Seagram was a global distiller. Moved to Timmins, initially worked for Seagram's there 3 years, moved to Ottawa for a year, Winnipeg for 5 years, and then they moved me to Atlantic Canada, and that's 22 years ago now, in February.
Wow, so you've been all over the place.
Been all over the place. And that afforded me the opportunity to open up an agency, which represents different lines of beverage alcohol from around the world, and that's called Atlantic Spirits and Wines. And what brings us to Spindrift is in the agency game, you are the victim of your success. So as you build brands and get them bigger and bigger to a critical mass, the supplier takes them back or the company gets sold. So Andrew Bell is my partner in that, and we decided we're so good at building brands, why don't we build our own? We looked at the craft brewing industry overall, and when you look at Nova Scotia's business, even today, we're still not 4% of the NSLC's total beer sales. We should be in that 18 to 25% area. So there's still ample room for growth into the craft beer industry. So that's the reason we came to here. As time evolves and as more people get into it, we'll get up there. I predict within 5 years we'll be at that 10, 11% mark. And then after that, we'll inch our way forward. But the growth right now is very strong in local craft beer, very strong.
Do you have a particular favorite? A style or a brand?
In our portfolio or overall?
Of course, your portfolio.
We happen to be sitting in front of a pair of Naughty Boys here, which is a Pilsner, a true German-style Pilsner that Kyle has just perfected for us. That is, without question, my favorite beer in our portfolio. The biggest beer for us overall, without question, is Killick, and that is a Munich Helles-style beer. We brew that beer for a couple of reasons. A, it's very easy to consume. And the other reason we did it is, we look at this as a bridge to getting people into craft, into the category overall, because it is so approachable and sessionable. There are a whole host of folks out there that want to support local, that want to buy craft products, but are afraid of hops or don't like hops, and so be it. I mean, to each his own. And that's why that beer is so popular and is our #1 seller, both in the on-premise, which is the licensees, and the off-premise, which are the retail stores.
What kind of experiences can people have when they come here to this location?
What they're going to get is you're going to meet a bunch of very friendly, fun, passionate people. Our folks here are very passionate about the beer, and it comes first. And we have a lot of fun here. The soul in this brewery is wonderful.
During our conversations, we also learned that Andy's son Alex works here as well. We spoke to him about what it's like working with his father. So Alex, how long have you been working here at Spindrift?
I've been here for 2 years now. Well, I manage the licensee accounts, such as bars and restaurants. I will go out and get new bar account sales, as well as manage our existing accounts. So basically with sales, it's all about building relationships. And then, Kyle makes a great liquid too, so the beer sells itself as well.
So your job is relatively easy.
Yeah, I just talk to people about beer. So yeah, there's worse jobs out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How do you like working with your dad? Is that a fun thing? Is it, I feel like it would be really, I would enjoy that kind of a relationship.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, we have a great relationship, right? And I mean, it's not like I'm in the building all day dealing with him. So, I'm out on the road most of the day, so it's good. He kind of gives us rein to manage our own schedules. So yeah, as long as we're out there doing a good job, yeah, it's great. I like it, for sure.
A big part of business these days is social engagement. To learn about Spindrift's success in this aspect, we talked to the retail manager, Deb.
I do 99% of the social media. Before I started working here, there were kind of like everyone was kind of chipping in, doing a post whenever they could, but no one was actually full on responsible for social media. So we've been told that ever since January, our social media presence has grown tremendously because I'm kind of taking ownership of that and trying to put out, at least one post a day. So people are starting to notice that. And it's helping with traffic here too in the retail store because people have seen our beers before. I get this a lot when people are coming through our door. Have you had our beer before? Yes, but I had no idea you had a tap room. I didn't even know this place existed. So the social media is kind of helping with that part of it.
Next up on Slainte, we talk with assistant brewer Stephen to learn about the 7th Wave program. And we get to sit down and try the beer. Throughout the day at Spindrift, we had heard a bit about something called the 7th Wave program. To learn more about this, we sit down with assistant brewer Stephen. Steve, where did you grow up?
I grew up in southern New Brunswick, in Quispamsis.
And what brought you to Nova Scotia?
I came to Nova Scotia because as I was going through school, I was working on an independent film with some friends. So I came into Nova Scotia to Halifax. It was like my trip after university. I was like, oh, I'll go to Halifax and I'll finish the film with them and we'll become famous movie stars, obviously. And I was here and I just fell in love with the city.
So what took you into brewing?
My dad used to brew, and it was one of the most fun things that we did together where I didn't know what I was doing, but I was helping him bottle, I was helping him do certain things. And so that was the connection that I started to feel at a very young age when I was, I think, 6 to 7, he started doing it. And he had this thing called boom beer, which when you opened it up, it would shoot the caps to the ceiling. And I know now that he was just making terrible beer, but it was one of the first kind of intense connection memories that I had. So as I grew up and started to settle down in the area, I just wanted to, I think, relive and achieve that again, that kind of connection to something.
So would you say that Spindrift is different than some of the other establishments?
The accessibility of the beer is what I love about Spindrift. When they started off, it was primarily a lager brewery. The easy to drink, simple, crisp and clean beers are gonna be with you the whole time. And that's what I really enjoyed. I wanted to have something that I could have a few beer of. When I first started brewing, I started doing experimental stuff. It was just like salted caramel, things that smell like sweaty goat. And my friends would come over and be like, what do you have to drink? And in the end, the answer was nothing. Because only I like these beers. And the process of it, I felt connected to it. But over time, I started brewing more traditional things, more things that people could access. Here, which is a fantastic opportunity that I get to do, one of the big things in my department is getting industry people in, whether it be people from other breweries, home brewers as well, and get them in on our small batch system and get to show them all the things that I've been learning, but also show them how to make better beer and get it on tap and get their name out there, and they can impact the culture as well.
And that's the 7th Wave?
That's the 7th Wave program that we do. The goal right now is every Thursday, we try to release a new beer. And it's something new that we don't necessarily have on tap. It's a new style that either the community has asked us about. So we did a porter and a red because people were asking for it at a certain time of year. So it connects us to our clientele. It connects us to the community and what they're looking for if there's any gaps. It allows us to workshop future recipes we might want to do, but also the beer world's always changing. There's always new yeasts, new hops, so it allows us to stay current as well. While we have our traditional, historical, great, easy drinking lagers in our core line, we also get to test out where we want to go in the next year, 2 years, 3 years. So it's kind of it's a future thought program, which I like.
That sounds very exciting.
Yeah, and also it's just, what do I want to drink in 2 weeks? Perfect, I'm going to brew it. And then I get to kind of go and make whatever I want to and grow on that end.
Where are you hoping to see the craft brewing culture in Nova Scotia change or grow?
I would like to see it become a little bit more current and contemporary. So I would hope eventually we'd get to define part of the culture. Have people coming to us saying, oh, the East Coast, Halifax, Nova Scotia, these people did something that hasn't been seen before. And they start taking notes from us and applying it different places in America, say.
After learning so much about Spindrift Brewing, it was now time to taste the beer. All right, guys, so what are we trying today? Whoa, what? I'm
You
worried.
clammed up there?
I'm
You want me to- I'll talk.
genuinely worried now.
I'll talk. You want me to talk?
All right, so what are we trying today, guys?
Trying Killick Session Lager, Naughty Boy Pilsner, Hurricane IPA, and our Radler.
Well, so tell me a little bit about your lager. This is your session.
Killick Session Lager is by far our best-selling brand, and it's our most drinkable brand, and it's my personal favorite as well. It's just very bready, light, refreshing. I like to use the word crushable.
Got a beautiful color to it.
This is a beer that we made, to get people into craft.
What I really love about it is that you do get kind of a wash of flavor from it, which is really nice, but then it's very clean at the end.
Yep.
But this has a very nice light flavor to it. Great, what's next?
So next is the Pilsner, and you can see that it's a little bit more malty or darker in color. It's a golden yellow.
Yeah.
So Pilsners are often thought of as very light beers, but the reality of a German Pilsner is that it's very hoppy, and it should be quite bitter. So
So this one was, you said 16 IBUs?
Yes.
And this one is?
28.
28, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. So some of the tasting notes I like to use to describe this would be like honey lavender, or lavender honey. It's very floral, and there's a little bit of a lemony lemongrass kind of flavor in there as well.
Yeah, it's got quite a lot of flavor. It's almost kind of a creaminess to it. That's very good.
It's a fun beer. Every brewery
Delicious.
needs to have a Pilsner,
It's delicious.
in our opinion.
What's this guy?
This is Hurricane IPA. So this is one of our newest brands that just hit the NSLC. This is a West Coast IPA. There's a haze craze going on right now, and people make very hazy, muddy-looking beers.
Is that from not overly filtering?
This is
that the
not
yeast?
filtered as well, but
Okay.
there's still yeast in suspension. Some of those hazier beers. It receives a dry hopping, a massive dry hopping, but we find a way to clear it out without using a filter.
So fruity smelling.
Big grapefruit notes. The dominant hop in this is Comet. A little bit of Amarillo. So two classic American hops in an American IPA.
Isn't it delicious?
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of grapefruit, a lot of bitterness right up front, but then again, you get that very clean, like mouthfeel to it afterwards. It's very, very, very smooth.
This is Spindrift's first, shall we say, dipping our toes into the ale category.
And what's this last one here?
Last one is the Radler. So this is our summer seasonal beer right now. It's a citrus Radler. Dominantly grapefruit, a little bit of tangerine, and a little bit of lemon.
Are those the flavors, or is that actually the fruit you've added?
The fruit that was added.
Oh.
It's a fun product.
Yeah,
So the
big flavor.
one thing that sets our Radler apart from other Radlers on the market was that we sweetened it with stevia and not glucose. So it's very dry, but there's still a perception of sweetness. So you're not getting nearly the amount of calories that you would get with other Radlers on the market.
Interesting. It's very kind of juicy, Like
Yes.
it's, I mean, obviously it's made with fruit, but it gives me that sensation when I'm drinking it. It's like, oh, this is like...
Very
it's almost
refreshing.
Very, yeah. It's like, it's very good.
Thank you. So yeah, that about wraps it up.
Love it. So anyone can come in here and have one of these?
Yes, they can. And as of July 1st, you're going to be able to come in to Spindrift and get full pints. We're really looking forward to that.
Spindrift Brewing, what a fantastic location. I absolutely love what they're doing here. They've got a lot of ties to the community, to the Maritimes, as you can see in their logo, but they're also brewing some creative beers here. So if you want some good beer by some good people, you should come on down to the Dartmouth location here, and make sure to try my personal favorite, the Naughty Boy. I am definitely looking forward to coming back.